2 of Georgi Stankov's How to Interpret Correctly the Clinical Manifestations of Your Light Body Process. This chapter will be focused on how to interpret correctly the clinical symptoms associated with the transformation of the 7 body chakras during the LBP, light body process, and how to cope with their effects in your daily life. Because really, this is how everybody, is looking at this issue. They're like, how does this practically, relate to me? How can I use this information to help me in my everyday life as I'm bouncing back and forth between 3D, 4D, 5D, wherever D I'm at, right? As we're going through so many Ds, right? As dimensions in some respects are just levels of consciousness, more details, more layers and things. So I'm just going to get right to it. Let's just start right off. Everybody ready? How to interpret correctly the clinical symptoms associated with the transformation of the 7 body chakras during the LBP, light body process, and cope with their effects in daily life. Again, this is written by Dr. Georgi Stankov. Departing from our elaboration on the role of chakras in the LBP process, otherwise known as the light body process, I'm not going to repeat that every time, just FYI. We shall now discuss the most common symptoms associated with their transformation. Some of these symptoms were already mentioned above in my previous video, which I will link here, part 1 of this. We shall summarize these once again in this chapter. The first and second chakras are fear-based chakras and harbor the self-preservatory instincts of the incarnated entity. When they start to be cleansed, these fear-based patterns come on the surface and must be consciously experienced. This physical experience is as individual as the fear patterns harbored in these chakras, so that they cannot be discussed at this place. However, they are regularly associated with severe symptoms of the renal and urinary tracts. The person in this stage of the LBP, light body process, regularly suffers from episodes of intermittent neuropathy with lumbar pains, which are projected into the pelvic region, and from a concomitant inflammation of the urinary bladder, cystis, I don't know if I said that right, and the urethra, causing burning and acute pain during urination. These symptoms usually last for 2 to 4 days and rapidly disappear when the transformation energy wave of the 2 lower chakras is completed. I personally think this phase lasted, as a side note, for me about 2 to 4 days, like right in the money. I want to say it was like really bad for 2 days. This was like a year plus ago for me. And then the 3rd and 4th day was a little bit more minor. Actually was like, did my dude give me an STD? Like, how did this happen? At first, because I'm like, why is this happening, right? So just be aware, your partner probably did not cheat on you. If the burning continues, however, please see a doctor, right? This is just information. You are responsible, as I said in the first video, for your own bodies, and that includes your energetic bodies and physical bodies. So it's just information. Take it for what you will. Again, these symptoms usually last for 2 to 4 days and rapidly disappear when the transformation energy wave of the 2 lower chakras is completed. I recommend only to drink as much water and liquids as possible and to use various herbal teas that promote the relaxation of the urinary tract muscles and stimulate diuretic responses, I would say. He said something else, but I don't know how to say that. The most difficult part of the LBP, light body process, is the transformation of the 3rd chakra, which involves liver, gallbladder, pancreas, and stomach. It may last for 5 or more years. Don't shoot the messenger, I'm just saying. Most people at this stage, however, are experiencing this much more rapidly and experiencing this much more, I don't want to say intensely, than those that came before us. That's a side note on my behalf, not the author's note. But yeah, just know that if you're going through this process now, you are being aided greatly by those who have gone before you, and there are whole teams out there that you just can't see of energetic entities. Some good, some bad, but where there's bad, there's also good. And there's whole teams of, you could call them angels or your guides or your ancestors, whatever floats your boat, your higher self, whatever floats your boat, but they're helping you whether you know it or not at this time. So you can actually ask for assistance if you're having really bad, uncomfortable symptoms. You can ask for assistance with those. That's okay, But I would always preface, when you ask for any assistance, just say, I'm only accepting assistance that is for my best and highest good, or from entities that have my best and highest good at stake. You know, something along that way. If you don't want to open the door to just anything, right? Back to this article. The most difficult part of the LBP is the transformation of the third chakra, which I just said that. This may last for 5 or more years. Even when the process is completed, these organs are vulnerable to any new high frequency wave coming from the left brain portal down through the body. It is always associated with various specific symptoms of these organs. I also want to put a side note in real quick too. As these Lionsgate portal just opened, the 8/8, and then we also had the new full moon, and we also have the eclipse coming up. All cellular memories, a huge amount of them are being purged and cleansed at this time, especially with the eclipse. I've been told a lot of Atlantis energies are being purged and cleansed by the collective. Even by those who might not have been there at that time, they're still aware of it, and they're still helping to purge and cleanse this, because that's a huge imprint that's been left, not only on the earth, but within the memories of souls. And so all of us have to cleanse our own crap. That's just the way it works. So with this eclipse coming up, this is bringing up a lot of stuff for people and triggering a lot of people. That's why I've told people to be very careful right now, because a lot of people are being very aggressive. They're being triggered by things that they don't even realize they're being triggered by. A lot of people who thought they'd gone through the dark night of the soul are re-entering dark nights of the soul again. And some of that's not even their stuff. It's just they're helping to clear for the collective. So if you find yourself getting to a bad place, feel the energy, but then pass out of it. Acknowledge it, release it, and don't linger in it is my advice to you, because that can get really icky really quick. Because a lot of people are just starting these symptoms is my point. So just be aware of that. Back to the article. In the first place, the ascension candidate in the light body process has complaints associated with the gallbladder and the stomach, such as hyperacidity, acute pains in the right upper abdomen, especially after mealtime. Side note, this definitely happened for me. I was also nauseous for 6 months. So I threw up for 6 months, just saying. Acute pains in the upper abdomen, especially after mealtime, nauseousness, vomiting, and other similar symptoms that may lead the doctors to believe the person should be treated or even operated for severe gastritis, peptic ulcers, stomach tumors, gallbladder stones, pancreas inflammation, tumors, liver cirrhosis, etc. The effect of such interventions is that the patient is in most cases lost for the LBP, light body process. Not so much because of the direct physical intervention of the physicians, but because he has succumbed to his or her own fears and has delegated the power over their body to incompetent doctors. That's the ticket. What you believe, you perceive. With such a mindset, there is no light body process and no ascension. You're just sick in that process, right? If you're thinking this is a disease, it's what you're going to get. You're going to get a disease. If you want to believe you've got fibromyalgia, guess what? You get fibromyalgia, okay? If you want to negate and not look at the reality of what's happening, that's your own choice. Nobody's going to force you. Like, once again, this is free will. You're being offered this opportunity of ascension. It only happens every 26,000 years. So if you don't want to do it right now, there's no wrong choice. It's just you're going to wait a very long time to try it again. That's what I would say. Back to the article. Fortunately, there is a very simple and highly effective therapy which I strongly recommend to all ascension candidates in the light body process. When they enter the transformation process of the third chakra, you must know that upon entering the light body process, you have also acquired enormous healing energies from your soul, which you can now use to mitigate the most severe symptoms of the LBP and to support it in a very effective manner. You must only believe that this is possible. You just have to open the door to the possibility. I tell people, you don't even have to walk through it. You don't even have to take a step through it. Just open the door to the possibility. When I first started this, I was literally in big trouble. My body was shutting down. Really, really. And I just, what's that phrase? Fake it till you make it. I started telling my DNA that it was operating in perfect harmony with my body's. I started telling my DNA that I am 100% healthy, that my DNA is functioning at 100% optimal health and efficiency. I knew it was a lie at that point, but fake it till you make it. The more you tell your DNA that, guess what? The more it starts to operate on that level. And we have an energetic body that has so much to do with our physical symptoms. If we start to acknowledge that, most of our physical crap goes away. How many people are on antidepressants? Let me just say that, right? Back to the article. In this particular case, as soon as you begin to experience stomach, liver, or gallbladder pains in the right upper abdomen, you should lay your both hands upon this part of your body and meditate as long as the pain starts to disappear. At first, it may take 5 to 10 minutes to heal the pain. Later on, when you become more experienced and your frequencies augment, the healing effect becomes more pronounced, and you will be able to eliminate your abdominal pains of the third chakra within a couple of minutes. Side note, I did try this for myself and it worked amazingly. And here's the other crazy thing. I've tried it on other people. I haven't told them exactly what I'm doing. Like, let's just say for my dude, for example. He doesn't necessarily have the door completely open to the possibility of all this, but I've healed him sometimes by doing nothing more than laying my hands on him. And crazy. I mean, it's just crazy. We're through the looking glass now, right? This stuff really does work. So please give it a shot. What do you have to lose? It's free. It costs you nothing. Nobody's going to be standing in your bedroom or wherever you're at laughing at you while you're doing it, right? Give it a shot. You got nothing to lose. Open the door to the possibility. You open the door to the possibility that these drugs that are made by these people that you don't even know who they are, you don't know if they hate you, you don't know what they're putting in those drugs. You open the door to the possibility that that shit's going to work. Because why? Because somebody told you it would? You see all the ads on TV that show all the side effects, including death, right? That you're taking that pill for constipation or a headache or, whatever it is. Something so mundane, but side effect could be death. Could be up to and including death, right? And you can't sue us for that, right? Again, pharmacy means what, people? Comes from the root word pharmakia, which means to poison. Think about that. Back to the article. Okay. So later on, when you become more experienced and your frequencies augment, the healing effect becomes more pronounced and you will be able to eliminate your abdominal pains of the third chakra within just a couple of minutes. At the end of my light body process, I could treat such pains with my right hand within 10 seconds. As quickly as these pains come, as quickly they disappear after laying my hand upon my right upper abdomen. Another additional technique that mitigates the pain effectively is to employ quick, deep breathing, which helps release the negative energies in your third chakra very quickly. The symptoms associated with the heart chakra were already discussed above in my previous article, his previous article, I should say, because of their more severe and imminent character. In addition to them, the opening of the fourth chakra is also associated with a profound transformation of the lungs. There are specific energy waves that enter the left brain portal and affect, in the first place, the respiratory system. When you have entered this phase of the light body process, you will begin to discern the various wave qualities, and you will know in advance which organs will be affected and what kind of symptoms that you should experience several days later. I'd like to put a side note here too. How many people did we all know last year that got that quote, doing air quotes, respiratory infection, right? Both my mother and my son, one of my sons, ended up at the emergency room or in big trouble because of that. And what I've noticed too is when I come across people who aren't what I quote would call activated, that this process hasn't necessarily started yet, I'll get a call from them the next day or a couple days later and say, hey, I hope I didn't give you this cold. I got this terrible respiratory thing happening now. I don't just jump up and say, hey, by the way, sorry, I just activated your dormant DNA. You just enter the light body process. I don't do it. Don't do all that. But it's a trigger. For those of us that are activated, when we get around people who are not activated, one of the first signs and symptoms that you will see is that they'll start coughing stuff up. They'll have this respiratory thing start happening, right? And that's a sign of them becoming activated. I find a lot of people, when they cough stuff up, it's not normal stuff that we cough up. How do I describe it to people? It's almost like packing bubbles. There's weird bubbles within this stuff that I don't know how to explain that. It's the weirdest stuff. I mean, I'm 42 years old and I've never seen anything like that. It's just the weirdest stuff. But that was what I found very interesting. Long side note, is that I found an article on Escocaris. I don't know if I said that right. Escocaris, also known as God's glitter. But they talk about these people or religious icon statues that have this crystalline process, or this stuff that I show that is in the DNA activation coming out of my skin. But they show the same thing on these religious items or on people after they've worshipped or whatever. What I found very interesting, though, was in that article, I'll try and link it with this article as well, they talk about this weird thing where people cough up this bubbly stuff. I don't know how to explain that. Maybe he'll explain it later on for you. But it doesn't just get coughed up. When you blow your nose, you'll notice that happens sometimes too. And if it's happening to you, you don't have to ask if it's happening to you, because you know it's happening. It's like you don't question whether you're pregnant unless you're like one of those crazy chicks on TV who didn't know they were pregnant and pops a baby out, 9 months later. But usually you either are or you're not going through it. It's not a little bit, or it's not happening yet is my thought process. Like you know when that happens, because it's unlike anything else you've ever coughed up in your life. It's just very odd. I don't know how to put it any different than that. Okay, moving back. Okay. It is important to stress at this place that when a high frequency wave coming from the causal center of your soul enters your physical vessel through the left brain portal, it takes some time before this wave fully reaches the lower body organs and induces the corresponding symptoms and complaints. In the case of the respiratory astral wave, it affects in the first place the upper airways, such as the nose, pharynx, and larynx, before it descends within 24 hours to the trachea and the bronchi until it finally reaches the alveoli of the lungs. The result is a dry, acute, severe bronchitis, and pneumonitis, which can be rather dramatic and can manifest itself clinically as acute pneumonia. At the beginning, this bronchopneumonitis is always associated with high fever. Now, I have to put a side note in here too. For those that are Rh negative, you might not get any fever. My mom was at the doctors last year with pneumonia. They diagnosed her with pneumonia, but she never really got a fever except for just very briefly. We, as Rh negatives, typically run about 2 degrees below normal is what I found. Me and both my sons run at like 97.3 generally, sometimes even like a 96.9. It just depends. So just keep that in mind. For those of us that are Rh negative, we rarely get fevers. If we get a fever, that's usually a very big symptom that we're very, very sick. Something is really trying to get out of our system. So I just wanted to preface with that. So just know if you're Rh negative, you might not get a fever. So just be aware of that. Okay. At the beginning, this bronchopneumonitis is always associated with high fever. However, at a later stage, you will no longer be able to develop fever in your body, as this symptom is associated only with the metabolism of the carbon-based organism and is no longer existent in the new crystalline light body which you are about to build. Side note, I haven't had a fever since this whole thing started. And when this whole thing started for me, it started with me with an NDE, which is, I would say, a near-death experience. But I almost died. I got very sick, had multiple surgeries, as I've said. And they kept saying to me, because I had a horrible infection, you haven't had a fever? Well, you can have an infection. You don't have a fever. You can't have an infection. You don't have a fever. And then once they got in there, they're like, oh, you have a horrible infection. Here's some Cipro, right? Great. Thank you, by that way. Ugh, gross. Anyways, but my point is, just because some doctor's telling you that you can't have an infection because you don't have a fever does not, be aware. Just be aware of your own body and what it's doing, and what you feel. If you feel it is doing something, it probably is doing that. So just because some doctor with a plaque on the wall who went to school says that it's not happening, don't buy into that. You know your body. Trust your body. Okay. This is a very exciting field of the clinical light body research, about which I could tell you much more, but I will refrain from this at the moment as to not make matters much more complicated. Right. The acute bronchopneumonitis lasts for 2 weeks and represents the most intensive and extensive transformation episode during the light body process. Fortunately, it occurs only once or twice per year and leads to a massive release of density in the physical body. This event involves, in the first place, the 5th and 4th heart chakra, but has also a lasting impact on the lower 3 chakras. As soon as the respiratory astral wave that triggers the acute bronchitis enters the body through the 6th and 7th chakra, pneumonitis, if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. The brain is also fully involved in the human suffering. From the very beginning, this wave leads to extreme tension headaches and rigidity of the neck muscles that is almost completely unbearable. How many of us can raise our hands with that, right? My mother has had horrible issues with this. Back to the article. This tension headache lasts at the beginning for at least 24 hours. Its duration may diminish to 12 to 15 hours later on when you enter the final stages of the LBP, light body process. It affects predominantly the left brain hemisphere, but may sometimes appear as a right brain tension headache. Please do not confuse these headaches with migraines. The best drug to use during this episode is dipyrone. I don't know how to say that. I'm just going to spell it. Dipyrone. Dipronine, also known as metamizole. Metamizole, Novalgin, Novalgin, and also known as Hoechst, Hoechst. I don't think I said any of those right, so like I said, I spelled them for a reason. Look them up. However, this analgesic drug helps only at the latest stage of the tension headache attack and thus only shortens the duration of the pain. At the peak, no drugs can help, therefore, forget it. The best measure to mitigate the tension headache is to put your head every half an hour under cold water shower and make a massage of the head and neck with your hands. Another technique that helps a little bit is to build a triangle with the thumbs and fingers of both hands above the crown chakra. In this way, you create an energetic shield over your head and relay part of high-frequency energies along your arms to the body instead of directly flowing through your brain and neck. Oh my God. I just like put a side note. I did that instinctively. I had no idea I was even doing that in that way. I just instinctively did that when I had this happen to me. That's funny. So trust, again, just trust yourself. Trust what feels like it will work for you, I would say. Now, there is a remarkably peculiarity which I must mention at this place. When such a massive wave starts to enter your left brain, it is transported predominantly through the nervous system. As some of you may know, the afferent neuronal strands of the brain, the so-called primordial tracts, the corticospinal tracts, sorry, are crossing in the lower brain, the medulla, oh my God, really, oblongata, in the so-called, I'm saying all this wrong, I'm so sorry, in the so-called decussatio pyramidalis, decussatation of the pyramidal tracts before they leave the brain. This is why you should also read the article so you can actually maybe see what it's saying, because who knows how I'm murdering half these words. In this case, the afferent pathways of the left brain are responsible for the innervation of the right body and vice versa. Therefore, this huge astral wave reaches predominantly the right half of the body and triggers a moderate form of the right body hemiparesis with rigidity of the corresponding muscles. This kind of hemiparesis is associated with an impairment of the fine muscle coordination and the transient joint pains in the pelvis, knees, and ankles. The fingers of the right hand are very rigid and clumsy during this wave. The right elbow is suffering most of the time and may be painful for days. It feels like a, quote, tennis elbow injury, unquote. I call such a massive wave a CC wave. From CC equals commotio cerebri, concussion, because when this wave hits you first, you feel as if you have boxed 12 rounds with two Kalichiko brothers at the same time in the ring, and they've knocked you down every 30 seconds. I do not want to scare my readers with this description, as it may be the case that very few of you will ever experience such a massive episode of light-body process transformation. In my particular case, I had such episodes every 2 to 3 days in the last 7 years, according to my diary on the light-body process, which I am keeping with diligence since then. Sometimes I've had a series of 3 to 5 CC waves each day in a row during 1 week. I think he meant in a row during 1 week. Let me observe now that not all CC waves lead to acute bronchiopneumonitis, Most of the time, they only lead to a light or moderate inflammation of the airways or do not affect them at all. I'd like to put a side note in too. I've been in my process for about 1 year, 9 months-ish. And I would say that this happened so severely for me in the very beginning. I had 6 months of just every morning, I literally would have to take half an hour to 45 minutes in the bathroom to rub the energy filaments out of my eyes, or the crap that was connected to the energy filaments. You get more, what's the word I'm looking for? Gosh. You get more stuff that comes out of your eyes. I don't know why I can't think of the word for it right now, but you'll get more discharge. That's what I'm looking for. That comes out of your eyes, and you'll notice it gets grittier, thicker, more gel-like. It's more bubbly, like this substance I was talking about. And it has those crystalline pieces or these geometric fractals embedded in that. And so when you wake up in the morning, you'll notice that your eyes are stuck together like pink eye sometimes. And for me, during this acute pneumonitis phase, not only would I have to take 30 to 45 minutes in the morning just to wipe my eyes out and get my eyes to open with all this crap stuck in them, but also I would have to take 20 minutes and I'd have to drink something warm like coffee or tea to get this stuff up that's been in my throat all night, because I literally would just have to cough up this crazy gunk it was just the craziest stuff I'd ever seen. But that only lasted very significantly for a few months, I want to say. Mine was very intense. I'm on a very accelerated awakening or light body process, I would say too. I'm on a very accelerated path. So everybody's path will be very unique and different for them, like I said. However, now I find I will have reoccurring phases of that when I get a new wave, but it's just like 5 minutes in the morning, and it's not taking over my whole day. It's not like I'm having to stop and cough stuff up predominantly during the day or visit a doctor or, have all these, phases like that. It's much, much less degree. But like I said, a large part of that though is talking your body through this and doing those things that you can to strengthen your vibrations to make it easier on your physical body during this process. I have a video out that talks about raising your vibration and things that you can also use as accelerators, which I would put an asterisk in front of. Be careful with those. Know what you're getting into. You don't want to get the cart before the horse too much. That can be a problem. You don't want to burn out. But that being said, just know the process does get easier. But for those just entering it, just know that you might have a much more intense time period with this right now, but it might last a much shorter amount of time compared to some of these people who had to go through 5 years or, these very elongated time periods with this. We're on a much more accelerated pace at this point, is what I would say. Moving on back to the article. Sorry about that. Okay, so let me observe now that not all CC waves lead to acute bronchiopneumonitis. Most of the time, they only lead to a light or moderate inflammation of the airways or do not affect them at all. Only when the CC wave exceeds the usual intensity, it will trigger an acute bronchiopneumonitis. When you have gone through such an episode, you will never forget it, and you will immediately recognize it the next time. Side note, like I just said, it's not one of those things you don't know. You either know that you're coughing this stuff up or you don't. Like, there's no in between. Because you'll never see anything like it, so you'll know. Trust me. Every CC wave leads to a huge augmentation of the body frequencies and to a massive release of fear-based patterns and other negative energies that have been stored for many incarnations in your bodies. These negative fear patterns are predominantly stored in the so-called junk DNA, which is in fact the human memory of all past incarnations. I'd like to put a side note here too. Okay, so I heard something the other day, and let me tie it in for you. And I wish somebody had done it for me like this at the very beginning. Basically, what's happening in a nutshell, for people to make it really, really easy, our DNA got hijacked. We were bioengineered. Not so far-fetched now to think that way. We never would have heard the word bioengineering until a few days ago. Now everything is GMO'd, right? We were GMO'd. True fact. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. Okay. We got hijacked. You could look at it like somebody put a prison around our physical, energetic bodies, or you could look at it like somebody put a cast on you, like if you broke your leg, right? What we are doing now, okay, what I show on my channel, the crystalline body, what he's talking about, the light body process, is when you activate that junk, quote, DNA, and as I say all the time, why would God plant 90% weeds in a garden? It doesn't make any sense. He wouldn't. We wouldn't, right? That doesn't make any sense. Why would we put all this crap in that we would never use? No, it just got deactivated. Somebody put a switch in that shut it off for us. As we become aware, and that's all it takes is opening the door to the possibility of becoming aware, that door opens back up. And as you rebuild your light body, well, it's already built, so to speak, but as you reactivate your dormant, quote, DNA and this light body process, it becomes more and more visible as that shell or that cast falls away. Okay, that's what I show on my channel. We shine from the inside out more and more as we remove these layers and pieces of this cast, as we remove these pieces of shell that have been gunking up our DNA field. And that's the whole point, is we are in the process of rebuilding our beautiful DNA fields around us. And that keeps us safe from interference. Once you're aware of the controlling system, of the controller, so to speak, you become immune to them, because the only power they really have is you being unaware. Okay? Once you become aware, their control ends. So then they can only get through to you, because they can't be in your field anymore. Let me put it that way. Once your DNA is activated, sorry, you can hear my dog running around in the background. They can't be in your field anymore. But what they can do is hit the people that you love. Because if they're not aware yet, they can go through them to get to you. So that's why a lot of people feel like targeted individuals. Like, why is everybody attacking me right now? That's why. Because it's the only way they can get to you. Once you stop letting those other people trigger you, then they realize they can't get to you in any way, right? So I would just say be very careful with that. Don't let other people trigger you if you can help it. And just remember that you can take that cast off, you can take the shell off at any time. And most likely, if you found this video, the way it works is you already have. You've already started the process. The student finds the teacher when they're ready. Isn't that the way they say it? Right. So for you to find this video means you've already started this process. And people won't find this video if they haven't already started the process or aren't interested in the process, because they won't have that door open. They won't be resonating to that frequency. Does that make sense? Okay. Moving on. Where were we? These negative fear patterns are predominantly stored in the so-called junk DNA, which is in fact the human memory of all past incarnations. Oh, I was going to say that too real quick, side note. So our DNA basically is every memory. That's what DNA is. That's all it is, pretty much, from what I've been told. It's coded, it's codes, and they're memories. They're memories of every past life that you've had. Well, it's past, present, and future, because it's all happening now. It's a weird deal. It's a weird deal. But they're all just memory codes. And that's why they say we all have the answers within us. Because not only do you hold the DNA codes and the answers for all your stuff, it's everybody. We hold the answers for everything, for not only you, but for your mom, for your dad, for your brother. It's all in our DNA. This DNA stuff it's insane when you start to really get into it. But remember that it's like all these codes that make up this beautiful energetic swirling thing around your body. And what I show on my videos is, if you want to see what it looks like, go to my YouTube page. Well, you're already there, but go to one of my videos that shows it on my hands or my legs or my arms or whatever, because it's beautiful. And mine is not going to be exactly identical to yours. Everybody has their own beautiful, beautiful DNA. Like, everybody's so unique in that. So just know that yours is probably going to be awesomer, or that's not a word, but it's going to be so much better than mine, probably. You know what I mean? We're all special that way. And I'm not more special than anybody. We're all equally amazing. Let me put it that way. These negative fear patterns. Okay, wait. Go back. These negative fear patterns are predominantly stored in the so-called junk DNA, which is in fact the human memory of all past incarnations. Please do not forget that you are now cleansing the whole karma. This is so important for everybody right now. You are now cleansing the whole karma of all your present, past, and parallel incarnations, as to achieve the full integration of all your lives with the center of your soul and soul family, respectively, with the monad. This is essentially my synopsis on the clinical symptoms during the light body process, which you may or may not experience in this totality and intensity. I am giving you here a catalog of most common symptoms and complaints which one can possibly encounter during this process in conjunction with the function and transformation of the 7 body chakras during this process. But please do not use the above discussed symptoms as a curriculum for your hypochondriac inclinations. This has nothing to do with a light body process. The author of this article is a medical doctor and has vast experience in clinical research. He has conducted and managed many large international clinical trials with new drugs in the 80s and 90s. In 91, he founded the Private Institute for Drug Investigation, Auditing, and Statistics, the DIAS, D-I-A-S Institute in Munich, Germany. In 1994 through 1995, he discovered the universal law in bioscience and later on in physics, and developed the general theory of science of the universal law that is planned to unfold fully after mass ascension of humanity in the 5th dimension. Therefore, it is correct to say that the new scientific theory of universal law is at the same time the science of ascension. This article is a concrete, popular scientific application of the theory, explaining the clinical symptoms that occur during the light body process. Okay, so that's the end of the second article. I hope that helps some people with some of the symptoms. Sometimes it helps people because we're so entrained, right, to believe doctors know better than us, right? So I can preach all day long and I can show you proof all day long of what I'm saying and what is happening, but sometimes it won't trigger for you, or you don't want to believe it unless you hear it from a doctor, right? If they have those initials behind their name, it means more. Well, this doctor is amazing. Like, he's so brilliant, and I would definitely encourage any of you, if you've not checked out his website, go to Stankov's Universal Law website. Like, the stuff he puts out is above me, a lot of it. Let me just put it that way. He is really amazing. But he has a very good grasp on the exact sciences of the light body process. And I would suggest that everybody get a handle on it right now, because we're all going through this. Everybody on planet is going through it to some degree. You just have to, or you're not staying with the planet. That's just the reality. And I'm just going to put it in perspective again for those of us who are going through it and getting very frustrated with those around us who aren't seeing it or acknowledging it or arguing with us about what it is, quote unquote, or various other aspects of this process that's unfolding. I explain it to people like I heard it a while ago for me in one of my messages. Look at it this way. There's a few categories of people. As this unprecedented thing is happening to humanity, and it's never happened before. So this is hugely, it's the biggest thing that's ever happened in the history of humanity. Let's just put it that way. So as this process unfolds, you're going to have a few different types of people. You're going to have the people like me who are very cognitively aware of this process. Most of those are probably going to be empathic anyways, because we're more aware anyways. But you'll have people like me who are looking down at our feet and watching as this beautiful rug is being weaved under our feet into a new creation. And we're going to be aware of the process as it's happening. We can see it, we can feel it. We're trying to help other people explain it. We're trying to push the process forward. And then you have another group of people who can feel something under their feet. They can feel something's happening, but they just can't see it. They can't get the whole picture. They're just on the edge of their seat because they know something's occurring, but they're just not sure what that is, okay? And then you have another group of people who are oblivious, okay? They don't see it. They don't feel it. They have no idea what you're talking about. You could be standing in a room and the exact same thing can happen in front of both of you, and they'll give one explanation and you'll be like, no, that's not, didn't you just see what I saw? But they're just oblivious. Their frequency is very, very different. I call those I hate to put a term or a label on it, but just for ease of everybody else, I call those the unawakened. You could say they're sleeping still. Let me add a fourth group of people. There's going to be a fourth group of people too, who are not going to go through this process at all. Who are not going to choose to go through ascension, whatever you'd like to term that as, awareness, whatever. It's got many different names. don't like getting trapped into labels for terms, because I think sometimes people use those as separation techniques and don't get past the label. So insert whatever you need to if that makes you feel better. But there is a group of people who is not choosing to ascend at this time. There is no choice that is wrong. Every soul needs to do what they need to do for their soul evolution. So, you know, for the people that are on the ascension path, that's great. For the people that are not on the ascension path, it doesn't make them less than. It doesn't make it a wrong choice. It's just a different choice. And is it frustrating to some of those on the ascension path? Not that they're not going on the ascension path. I think it's more frustrating that they try to negate the reality of those that are, you know. But just, you have to take the higher path with that. You have to be the bigger person. You have to just, you know, realize that you're just seeing. It's like tuning into a radio frequency. You can just hear the programs that's being played, and they don't have the capability to tune into that yet, so they just can't hear it yet. Look at it that way. But yeah, the third group of people, if we go back to the third group of people, they'll just look down eventually at the end and say, oh my God, how did this rug get switched out under me while I was standing on it? I don't even know how that happened. But they'll have to say, you know, to themselves that can only be by divine process, you know. So it will be a mass awakening for them in a very hurried time, that third group. Let me put it this way too. As my stuff becomes more visual, more able to be seen visually, I think this eclipse is going to push something forward. I'm not sure what that is exactly, but I have a feeling that if you want to call them star seeds or people who are going through this process, they have many names, whatever you want to call them. I do have a feeling that after the eclipse, something is going to tip one way or the other. And I don't think it's going to be backward. I don't think that's possible. So let's just say tip forward. I do have a feeling that something's going to tip off, whether that's we've reached critical awareness, which we already have technically, but whether we're just able to be seen by the masses, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But I know each day my symptoms become more and more visible. There is no hiding this for me anymore. It's just too prevalent all over my body. So I get very interesting reactions from some people lately. A lot of women, if they're not awake, will just be like, oh, what kind of lotion are you using? That's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Like, I'm not wearing any. Right? I have other people who think that I have to be on drugs and it's the drugs coming out of my system. I know, ridiculous. Because then wouldn't all the druggies be walking around like that? Ooh, sparkly. And then I have other people who think that there's something wrong with my kidneys or my blood, and I need to see a medical doctor ASAP. Right? Yeah, I never thought of that. And, you know, it just is what it is what I would say. But I would say that it's just not able to be hidden anymore. And I would say too, for everybody, I refuse to hide this at this point, or I also refuse to be shamed by it. I'm not ashamed of what's happening to me. Now that I know what it is, in the beginning I didn't know what it was. I thought I was being turned into a transhumanistic robot, so that freaked me out really, really bad in the beginning. I'm not gonna lie. But now that I know what's happening to me, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm proud of it. I've done a lot of really hard inner work, and I've always been, from the time I was born, I came out with the ability to love unconditionally. I just did. I didn't know another way. I've never known another way. So for me, I'm really happy other people are getting there. It's been lonely, right? For those of us who have been on this journey, it's been lonely. And I think we're all getting to that point where we're ready for change. We're ready for better. And if we all hold that vision of what we want versus holding visions of the fear that we don't want, right? Don't focus on war, right? All the negativity that you're hearing and seeing around you. Take this moment to focus on the outcome that you want. So focus on the beautiful things that we're capable of as a humanity species, you know, as well as we're capable of the worst possible things. We're capable of the most beautiful and amazing things. And this process wouldn't be happening for a lot of people if we wouldn't have held to the hope and the faith that even during the worst of times, that we held on to that light, you know, and that light got bigger. And so now this beautiful thing's happening, and everybody will see it very soon, I do think. Like I said, there's more than just me out there like this. It's happening to millions and billions of people right now. Nobody's going to be able to deny this very, very soon. In fact, right now, if you got some sun out, go outside your house, stand in the sun and look at you. Are your hands sparkling? Are your legs and arms sparkling? Sometimes in the very beginning, it's very small and sporadic. You need light movement and magnification generally sometimes in the very beginning to see this process. But you can see it best in natural sunlight, I would say. So if you're not sure whether this is happening to you, go stand in some natural sunlight, put the magnification on as high on your phone as you can get it, and even the flash sometimes helps as well. And then move your hand around and see if you see this happening. If you are resonating to this frequency and you're listening to this video, you are probably in process, is what I would say to you. It's very rare that somebody would find my video that has not already had this process begun. That being said, that's all I got for today. Be aware that these next week or two is going to be very, very intense. So be very, very kind, loving, and gentle and forgiving to yourself and others. Just know that you might be clearing stuff, not just for yourself, but for the entire collective. If you've got some emotions and memories and triggers that are coming out of left field, right? So be very kind and gentle to yourself. Take this time to relax. Take some, I would recommend about the eclipse. If you've got some sick days, take them maybe. You know, be gentle and kind and caring to yourself, others. Spend some time with your family. Do those things that you really love. Light up from the inside and, you know, be brave and courageous. You know, this is a beautiful thing that's happening. It's well past time. And we are the remembered. We are the awakened. We are the ones that we've been waiting for this whole time. And we're here. So very much love to all. Be the change you want to see. Peace.